Hi, I'm Jenna.
And I'm Mark.
And you're listening to
Cincinnati Zoo Tales.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Cincinnati Zoo Tales.
Yeah, thanks for joining us for another episode. I think we've got a very extremely informative and educational episode on our hands today.
You just put so much pressure.
No pressure, Kat. No pressure, no pressure. We're being joined by our animal excellence scientist, Cat Razal, today. I'm really excited to hear about the projects you've got going on right now, what it really means to be an animal excellence scientist. I'm excited to learn about it.
I always wonder when there's jobs like that, how people, I didn't know that was a job that existed.
Yeah. I don't think most people do.
Years ago. Yeah, so I always wonder how people get into that and if that was always your plan. So, like always, we want to hear how you got to where you are and, the things you've done along the way, anything exciting you want to share with us that weren't at the Cincinnati Zoo. We'd love to hear about that too. And then again, did you know this job existed and how did you plan for it?
Yeah, I definitely was drawn to it because of the word scientist, and I love the pathway and kind of that progress for zoos going towards that. We're going to be using science to address the health and the behavior and how our animals are doing every day. So I love that, and I know that's becoming more of a thing. And at first, it was a very small community, and I love the fact that it's now growing and growing. I do, this is actually my first position where I have scientists in my title, so that is definitely new for me, but I feel like we've been addressing and talking about this concept for a while, and now it's finally becoming more and more prominent in zoos, which I love. Just more data-driven, making decisions based on evidence and making sure animals are doing well every day.
Which is so important, and we care so much that our animals are doing well, but there's no part of me that wants to collect the data and analyze it, especially the analyzing part. So I'm glad there are so many different people with different, interests.
Yeah, I love how keepers, you guys do such amazing work building relationships with your animals, all the husbandry, the training, the enrichment, and then I almost call it the behind the scenes side, right? All that data you collect, where does it go? Does it get analyzed? Does it get reported? Because you guys collect records all the time on your animals and to know how they're doing, but we want to see kind of how those trends and patterns happen over time, and that's how I best describe welfare.
Okay.
Animal welfare, or animal excellence is what we call it, is kind of how our animals are doing over a full context of time, and what are those patterns? Are we seeing things seasonally? For example, birds definitely have seasonal behaviors and patterns depending on their mating strategies and things like that. How do we address those animals during those stages of their life by looking at it more along a timeline rather than a day-to-day, which keepers do amazing stuff day-to-day. And I feel like the science part also comes from analyzing that over time. I definitely did not start wanting to be a scientist.
Okay.
But I love the aspect of STEM and science just being in the process of zoos and how we make decisions. I actually wanted to be a marine mammal keeper when I started. And I can go into my backstory a little bit. So I grew up in Canada, and when I moved to the States, particularly to Arizona when I was around 10 years old, and naturally just going to the desert, I wanted to be a marine biologist. So that totally makes sense, right?
The grass is always greener, right?
Yeah. There's no ocean, and I just want to be near it. So it really was a trip to SeaWorld that really kind of solidified. That's so cool. You can work at a place and you can take care of animals. You can do that. Honestly, I saw the girl on top of the killer whale, just doing the show, and I was like, that's cool, I want to do that.
Coolest job ever.
Yeah. And when I was in 6th grade, I think, and during that time, that was just such a different reality to me. And So I went to school. I did as much animal courses as possible. I still went to school in Arizona.
Okay.
And I went to the University of Arizona. And I did actually some keeper internships at local zoos.
Awesome.
So Reed Park Zoo, and then at Phoenix Zoo as well. And then the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum, which is a really great place. I just love how that place looks. And then post-graduating, I did my first kind of out-of-state internship. And I worked at the Point Defiance Zoo and Aquarium, and that was my first kind of marine mammal internship, and I was really excited to get that one. So probably midway in my internship, found out that I was allergic to touching fish.
What?
Oh no!
Yeah.
Are you for real?
Yep.
I've heard of people allergic to all sorts of things in this job, but I have never heard of fish.
Yeah, so
Oh, man.
in this field, like, it sounds scary, but they call it, like, you guys probably heard, they call it, like, fish handler's disease, is when you just are so exposed to it over and over and over again, and then you just gain an allergy from it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I've heard other people in, like, training that have had that and things like that, but, yeah, I got it, and also I ended up having, so funny. I mean, it's funny to me now, probably at the time it wasn't.
I was about to say, I
Yeah.
imagine it was kind of heartbreaking
Yeah,
at the
it was
time,
a little
right?
heartbreaking. So I'm kind of like just going over that part. But I had like a fish sandwich, like the day prior. We were doing fish prep in the morning, so I ate the fish sandwich. I felt a little weird, and then the next day I was doing fish prep, and my arms just like flared up in hives. And then even like some like fish juice like went on my face and it, like flared up there too. And then I kind of like looked at like my supervisor and I was like, what is happening to me? And then she just explained it. She was like, I think you have fish handler's disease. So because of me not being able to do fish prep anymore.
You couldn't wear gloves?
Yeah, I wore like almost like a hazmat suit.
my gosh.
Like when I had to do it, which they were really careful about it, but they also didn't want to put me in that situation all the time.
Sure.
Like it was me being like, I want to do it. I'll just wear the suit. It's fine. And they're like, no. My supervisor was actually getting her master's degree. She was studying kind of walrus reproduction, and we had walruses in at the zoo or at the aquarium, and she was studying their behavior, and she was also collecting samples from them, and that's my first start of you can do science at a zoo.
Oh, okay.
That's really cool. Like it was a very applied, like we're collecting data, and then she's applying it towards her degree, and I was like, that's super cool. So even though yes, it was a redirect. Because of that, I actually found that to be another great interest of mine as well.
Yeah, one door was able to open, and one
yeah.
kind of shut, so it worked out well.
Yeah, it worked out really well, actually. Like, very literal. Yeah, I know, and it's really funny because, like, I laugh about it, and now, obviously. Yeah. But that's always the reaction I get. It's like, you didn't get to do what you dreamt of doing your whole life. And actually, no, I'm actually glad. Like, I'm glad to have had that opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, I think having those keeper internships and doing that was such an amazing experience. And sometimes I miss it, for sure. But now I kind of get to experience another part of that, which I really love.
And I'm sure that's very valuable because, as you mentioned earlier, you're kind of doing the analysis on the back end, but it's great to have an understanding of what's happening on the other side, which you clearly have.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to know what the keepers see and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Right,
Yeah.
and I'm always learning. I'm always learning from animal care staff all the time. I mean, especially since you guys are the ones that know the best about your animals, and we're really also not only utilizing that kind of data, just watching your animals, but also your data and how the preferences, the motivations, the things that really drive your animals' behavior and their welfare. I think it goes hand in hand. I like having those two things work together. And yeah, so I just decided to just go down that path, and I I did the next internship I did, I kind of, my parents like to say I like hopped around the U.S., but I really did. After that, I went to Orlando, Florida. I worked at Disney's The Seas with Nemo and Friends. And I did a aquatic research internship
Cool.
with them. So that was about 6 months, and then I ended up staying on, helping out at Animal Kingdom, just doing some data collection and research there. And then I went to San Diego Zoo to help out with a cheetah and okapi project. It was mostly on behavior and collecting hormones through their poop, and then and kind of correlating that together to kind of show any hormones, any stress hormones we find in their poop, if that correlates with behavior.
Okay.
And that actually led to a really great paper that came out probably a few years ago about that there is correlation between, behavioral diversity and hormones found in poop. So
Which
that's
makes
really
sense,
great.
but it's really nice that you can prove that with science.
Yeah, so it was great to be a part of that. And I think that's another really good point, that one of my favorite things about this is that it feels like I'm part of something that could lead to some discovery, I guess you can say, or some sort of effect or impact on any species or an individual even. So I do like that. And then I'm not done with my journey because I go around everywhere really. But after San Diego, I went to Brookfield Zoo in Chicago, and that was kind of my very first like full-time research assistant job, working with an animal welfare department. And then I was there for about 4-ish years. And then after that, I went to Texas to Corpus Christi at Texas State Aquarium to help out with starting at assessing welfare and behavior at an aquarium setting. That was something just as a growth I just wanted to do for myself, but also I'm really interested in knowing about kind of those understudied, underrepresented species like fish and reptiles and invertebrates, fascinated with like octopus, and cuttlefish.
So cool.
And,
yes.
And how do you assess behavior and welfare of those animals?
Yeah, I imagine it'd be so much harder in an aquarium with schools of fish or just like so many different species all together and moving through the water. It'd be harder to identify the smaller ones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think I tried really hard to just increase my knowledge of just fish species, just to be better at IDing them, knowing who they are. But really, it's almost just like a mammal kind of interspecies exhibit, like a mixed exhibit. And in thinking about it that way, there's a lot of interactions that can happen in one kind of body of water, right? And you have your scavengers, and you have your sharks and your predators and things like that. And it's really cool to see that kind of chain happen in that context.
Especially seeing how it would change over time. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just that was mostly for also, I mean, it was great to work in an aquarium setting, and it was great to help start up that program. And then when this job came up, like I said, not only because it had science in the title, but just of how renowned Cincinnati Zoo is as well. I mean, I've been following Fiona's story for forever. It was also mostly about the people as well. I met David Orban through some conferences. And Christina Gorsuch and I, the director of animal care, worked together at Brookfield, and they're both also very data-driven. I respect their decisions and all the things that they do for their fields, and to have them kind of at the helm of this kind of program was also very exciting to me. And then what even solidified it even further was that during my interview, every single person that I asked like, what's your favorite part about Cincinnati Zoo? And they all said the people. And I think that was a really strong, like a really strong feeling for me and a really great vibe to have. And not saying I didn't have that before, but I think that helped, me get this position. I truly believe that, animal welfare and animal excellence, animal science starts with the people that take care of them. Mm. And if the people who take care of them are happy, then that will transfer on.
That's such a good point.
For sure.
And a good way to put it. You've touched on the animal welfare and animal excellence, and that's a part of your title. And we talked to David a little bit about, because you kind of have, I think it's changed a little bit, but his job that he started with not too long ago here. But for people who don't necessarily know a ton about animal welfare or excellence, will you just explain a little bit more, go into that, and like kind of what your day-to-day job looks like just on the surface?
Yeah. David's made a ton of progress when he was in this position, and like you said, I'm in his former position, so it's kind of just continuing that progress that he's done. But a lot of what I do is like with welfare, kind of how I explained earlier, is that it's looking at those trends over time. We want to see not only day to day what our animals are doing, but also just kind of over time, what are those patterns, what are those trends, how are our animals doing? And we really try to put in, kind of combine the forces of keeper staff knowing their animals really well, having assessments be done on their animals' preferences and things like that, and then also take some objective kind of observations and understand behavior. Behavior is, I always say this, but behavior is the best indicator to know how an animal is doing. I mean, that's the greatest thing. I mean, observing them, what they do, how they react to certain enrichment, how they react to situations. Those adaptations is kind of what we hope to measure over time. So a lot of what I'm doing now is trying to get a lot of behavior observations, like more of a program across the zoo.
Does that mean you're out in the park? Are you making these observations?
Yeah, it's me and then a team of interns and volunteers. I'm trying to scale up right now, so I just started, I think less than a year ago, I would say, and it's been great to have interns to help out with a lot of that stuff, for sure. This is my first kind of session with 2 interns, so it's definitely helped scale it up a bit. The hope is that we have a behavior program that observes all the animals at the zoo, and then that way we have kind of this really large but very meaningful data set for every single animal. So it's something to compare to if an animal experiences maybe a different experience. We have something to say, well, this is how they were acting in this summer or this winter months, and then let's see how that compares to how they're acting now. So like if they have if they react differently to a new enrichment, it's like, oh, well, this is how they acted before. So it's something for us to be a little bit more it's just to add to what we already do already. It's just the great work that everybody does is to help add more information and to be more proactive and versus reactive.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and we're only doing observations. Not saying we do, but we do observations when animal is in a state that we can't compare it to. So that's hopefully trying to quantify a lot of the things that we're doing, because that is hard. Sometimes it's hard to quantify behavior. There's so many things that animals can do. I'm learning all the time. It's not static at all. Like, animals are doing so many different things. So we're always learning. We're always trying to keep up with, their behaviors, any other publications, literature that come out, and adding to their repertoire. So that's one part is kind of scaling up the behavior program. And then the other part is also helping us do regular welfare assessments or animal welfare assessments throughout the year. David did have a program when he was in my position, and that's and a lot of what I'm doing now is trying to get that back on track. And animal welfare assessments again are the things that definitely the animal care staff do a lot of help and work in, is to really understand, like, based on looking at the opportunities for animals to thrive, which in their health, in their behavior, in their choice and control, in their nutrition, like looking at all those categories and then asking the keepers what has changed since the last assessment. And those changes can really help us understand an animal more. So the combination of the behavior observations and the welfare assessments can help us give an overall, like, more comprehensive look at each individual animal. So that's what I'm hoping to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's obviously like a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
This zoo is massive. There's
Yeah.
tons and tons of animals here. You've only got so much manpower. How do you kind of decide where your resources go? You obviously, it would be amazing if we had volunteers or interns or paid staff to look and observe every animal in our zoo, but that's not super realistic at the moment. How do you kind of choose where your resources go?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's something I think about all the time. You know, we right now, currently, while trying to scale it up, I actually have some experience in doing this in Brookfield Zoo. We tried to observe all the carnivores at the zoo, and that undertaking alone was about over 70 species and over about 90 something animals within
Wow.
the species. Yeah, so it was pretty crazy. But it's about it's about counterbalancing a lot of that. Like we in order to have that information, you want to make sure that we're not just watching one species at one part of their day. I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to consider. I mean, I truly believe, like, you know, with nocturnal animals, we really should be watching them 24 hours a day. That's definitely part of their life, and I think we do a really good job here at the zoo, and just understanding that we don't just look at a zoo day, right? We try to understand the animal's behavior and welfare throughout their lifetime, which could include night if they're nocturnal, overnight for social interactions and things like that. So it's kind of a lot of scheduling, but it's we kind of break it up into time blocks so that we can absorb a lot of those different parts of the day, so that an animal or a species isn't watched every time at the same time.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes you would think you would want to do it at the same time every day to see if there's, like, you know, a behavioral change in that, but it also totally makes sense that you actually, for their whole being, want to see
Right.
all of the day.
Right. So it's a lot of scheduling, and we do, there's a great program called Zoo Monitor that is made specifically just to collect behavioral data. And that is becoming more and more popular with zoos and aquariums. So that program is an application. It goes on a tablet, and it collects behavioral data really easily.
It's like an ethogram, right?
Yeah. And then it also allows us to do like space use maps to understand how an animal utilizes its space. So it gives us a lot of information. And what's great is because it started from Lincoln Park Zoo, they understand it's in a zoo environment, so they know kind of how data collection should take place. So using an application that helps us along with the scheduling, and yeah, all you really need is the manpower, right? So I know that there are some institutions that I think I'm going to call out Lincoln Park Zoo again, because I'm pretty sure they're one of the first ones to have done this, is that they created almost like a volunteer group that goes out, and this is all they do. They collect behavioral data of animals. Yeah. So, and what I like to say with all of that is that for me, you know, being the person that deals with all that data, like, it's fantastic to see all that data going in, but then
you have to interpret it.
Right,
Yeah.
and who's going to be the one taking it out?
I never thought of that. Like, yeah, let's get you some volunteers. I mean, I'm sure we can find the people.
Yeah, and so So I'm already trying to work out that process of, how do we get people starting to collect behavioral data really quickly and but efficiently and obviously very meaningful. So I'm trying to come up with a more of a reliability a kind of behavior testing where instead of just to make sure that everyone's collecting the same kind of meaningful and valid data, we need to make sure we're all on the same page about what the animal is that lion really sleeping or is it actually like doing something else, like, you know what I mean, and things like that. My current interns and I have been collecting videos, and we've been monitoring a lot of the animals, and then we're basically using this video as almost like watch these videos, and if you score them reliably, then you can go ahead and watch and use Zoo Monitor.
So it's like a practice.
It's like a practice,
okay.
exactly. Yeah, because we can't. We can't. Like I'm going to use the lions again as an example. Lions don't usually show their entire behavioral repertoire throughout the day, right? Like they're mostly sleeping. That's what lions do. But we also want people to know that if a lion is interacting with enrichment, like what does that look like, or what does it look like when like John is playing with Imani, like what does that look like? So we're trying to collect those behaviors so that way so if you see it, then you can score it correctly and things like that. But if we did live reliability, then you just go out and blind sleeping, and you can't really count for all of those behaviors to be seen all at once. So we're trying to kind of do that so that way when we do bring people on board to collect that behavior, it kind of goes in that kind of process of that. So
that's awesome. It's a lot of work to create like a tutorial for every species that you want to monitor.
The goal is we're going to start with like taxa. We're going to start with each taxa, and then we're going to pare it down. We are looking at just the Africa team and you guys and how and all the animals. You guys have a very diverse group of animals. For example, hippos will probably need their own. Meerkats will probably need their own, but we could probably group the hoofstock together, right? So that's something that we're looking into and things like that. And then even though we might create a ethogram for a lion, that could technically apply to the other felid species.
Okay,
So that's kind of what we're looking at. So hopefully it's not creating, I don't know how many animals we have here, like, I don't know.
500.
500 tutorial videos. But it's actually a really fun part. I love making videos.
Do you?
And I love adding that kind of technology level. That's another great interest of mine.
Oh man, can you help me out?
Same.
Mark and I are not technologically inclined.
I mean, it's more like having that application of Zoo Monitor that like really nerds me out, and then all the programs. I mean, David, I know he loves Excel. If he could like wear like something that says "I love Excel," he would.
That's so funny that you mentioned Zoo Monitor. So Zoo Monitor here kind of got started when I was an intern, and I remember being an intern collecting some of this data, and one of the keepers who had a decent amount of years on me just handed me the iPad and said, "Surely you know how to work this." I looked at him and I was like, "I don't know what I'm doing. You're gonna have to walk me through step by step with this."
There definitely needs to be some like tutorial for that. Like there's a lot of that stuff you can't just hand off, but.
They were just trying to hand off the iPad to Mark.
No, that's what I'm saying. I couldn't even figure the iPad out, let alone the app. I was toast.
How do you turn it on? It hopefully helps out, like trying to incorporate, just more technology, more advancement towards that. Like it kind of helps me out to, like I'm trying to do the science and things like that, but I'm also trying to add different parts of STEM into my into my job. So I'm trying to also learn more about tech. I'm not an expert, but I'm trying really hard to, if there is something out there, can we find it? Can we incorporate it into our our day-to-day.
Which I'm sure a lot of
Yeah.
people don't realize. There's so much going on behind the scenes at zoos that we're doing to try and make animals' lives better, make sure that, you know, we're doing the best we can for them. Is there a specific project that you can think of that maybe an animal wasn't doing so great for whatever reason, and these, you know, assessments and observations helped and we were able to make a change, or any that you're currently working on?
Yeah, one that really comes to mind just because it was it was something like at the aquarium, and that was something that you know, the management staff really wanted. They're like, we want something that shows that, even though a lot of it already was helping. But prior to that, you know, they were doing records and things like that, but the welfare assessments were helping the keeper staff have discussions a lot more about their animals, and I think that's truly a lot of what you guys do already, and I think that's very helpful. It's kind of just quantifying those discussions now and putting them onto a database. And the first one that comes to my mind really is at Texas State Aquarium. We had a sandbar shark, and she was in her exhibit, and she was performing some type of stereotypic kind of repetitive behavior, just kind of doing circles, and it was kind of causing her to run into some things, like she was getting abrasions on her rostrum, and so we were noting every time she had those abrasions. So we were doing behavioral assessments on her, and then the welfare assessments were capturing the discussions between the keeper staff, like what's changing in her environment, like what's going on. Is it the temperature? Is it the pH? Especially for aquatic animals, that's very important. And so there was a lot of variables that actually happened. So what was nice about the assessment is that we got to track all of those. The temperature changed, the salinity changed as well in the environment. Introduced a couple more fish species in the exhibit, and then there was an extra kind of environmental change that happened. They started adding kind of like dive programs into the exhibit, and they added kind of like a little barrier. What was nice is that you know, it was it greatly reduced it, and she never stopped doing that behavior, but it greatly reduced it when understanding that when that barrier was up, in comparing it to her previous behavior, showing that it was actually jutting into her swim pattern. And sharks naturally kind of do that circular perimeter swim, but because that barrier came up, it was kind of interrupting that pattern, so she was starting to run into things because it was just out of her regular pattern, as what we were assuming. So and so the really quick fix to that was that, hey, can we just drop that barrier when there's no dive program? Like, you know, and then when there is a dive program, we can just put it up, but then just keep it down just for her. And that's really also looking at, there were 6 other sandbar sharks in there, and it was really nice that we were looking at her individually as you know, as not just part of a group, but she is an individual in that group of animals. So it was nice to see that. I think another thing too, at Brookfield, I did a project, kind of a local project, and then a multi-institutional project on giraffes and our reticulated giraffes there, and it was studying kind of their space use and also the differences of behavior and welfare between, because we were in Chicago, so behaviors, and you guys know this too, of them being indoors in the winter and then versus their outdoor summer exhibits, very different, right? There's a lot of differences between those two exhibits. And what we learned a lot of was that, you know, the giraffes at Brookfield, they did ruminate, and they were more recumbent, because we actually attached these giraffe Fitbits, as we called it, to their ankles.
That's awesome.
Yeah, to kind of monitor their space use and how much they were lying down and standing up in their exhibit, and I found out that they were more recumbent. But what was also really interesting, because in the local study there was 4 giraffes, and each one of those giraffes were very different. And what really struck us was that just the stark, like, just personality and individuality of those 4 giraffes. And like 2 of them were related to each other, 2 of them were unrelated. So it just was really cool to see that post that project, not like the animal care staff was doing it before, but post that kind of also solidified, wow, these guys are really different.
Yeah.
We probably should, do different enrichment strategies for each one, because now that helped us understand, well, this animal really doesn't like this type of enrichment, but this one does. So maybe we can try to do different things to help each one. Those are my favorites. I think it's because I spend so much time with those animals that helps me not only know those animals more, but just seeing those personalities come out.
That's always the best.
Yeah.
Oh yes, this one would do this, but there's no way that one's going to do that, you know.
But that's awesome that you guys are able to actually put data and quantify it, because we anecdotally as keepers, we watch our giraffe, and I can tell you based on watching them and our observations that every one of them is very different. We see them interact with the space and interact with the enrichment uniquely, but I don't have any data to back that up. I can't say that I know this for certain, but it's really interesting to be able to put the data behind it and say, now we can show that that really is a fact.
Right.
But I'm super interested. So obviously you say these are kind of tracking the trends over time. How much time does it take to really get your data back and be able to interpret it? Like how much, I guess it's going to vary for each project. Each project and each individual, but how much time do you spend collecting data before you start to analyze it?
That's a good question. So I think it almost varies with the type of questions you ask, like the research questions you ask with each project. Kind of going through that with my interns right now. So we always have a behavior intern project that they do. And they already are here only for a short amount of time. You know, they're here for about 3-ish months. So what helps for us is that I tell them, I kind of try to go through the entire research process with them from beginning to end in their 3 months. And so within their 3 months, I set apart about a month of that data collection.
Okay.
So it's and I also tell them to try to limit it to maybe one very specific research question that month can tell us. But that I think varies a lot with differences. And if you're looking at, if we, like, I use birds a lot as an example, like, for birds, it would have to be a crossover about a year, because you have to incorporate all the seasons, right? Sure. And then for specific animals that, I always said that octopus and those kind of species, cephalopods, are my favorite, because you could literally get their whole lifespan, like their whole lifetime, right? Because they only live for maybe a couple of years at the most. Like cuttlefish only live to be about less than a year. Oh. And then octopus are about 2 to 5, I think, is their life expectancy. So, I mean, I joke about it, but it's true. Like that's unfortunately how long they live. So we can get all of that. I'm talking with the insect team right now, and we're trying to go through just generations of each kind of, or each stage of, like, how do you assess a welfare of an insect? Well, we kind of have to go through either generations of insects or kind of the stages. Like, you want to go from the larva to the pupa to the adult stage, right? You want to know all of those.
Because welfare is going to vary based on the stage of its life,
Right, and it's hard to establish a baseline as well, so that's also something to bring up, that those change. Animals can, as they get older, we have quality of life assessments, which are essentially another welfare assessment, but it's just assessing a different stage of that animal's life. So I'm not really answering your question very well, sorry, but it varies. It's kind of hard because really there's no unless someone can prove me wrong out there, but really there's no kind of standard of, like, you need to collect this much data for this. When David and Christina and the elephant care team started the Elephant Welfare Initiative, that's kind of the program that we currently use to collect information of all of our elephants, their standard was about 10 hours of behavioral data per elephant. So that accounts for each elephant being monitored for at least 20 minutes a day for a month. So so that's something that they just that program specifically wanted, but there was really nothing that said this, like, elephants need to be, like, measured this time. I think it just depends on the animal's life history, I would say, and kind of the questions you're asking for each animal. Like that giraffe study, since it was for indoor and outdoor exhibits, we looked at it across over about 2 years, actually.
Wow.
So just so that we had 2 summers and 2 winters to kind of look at.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned this in some of our other episodes with the crew scientists. It would just be so hard for me to be collecting and then analyzing and waiting for that answer. Like, I would have the hardest time just, like, sticking with it. I want the answers now.
Yeah.
That would be tough for me.
Yeah, and I think that's why I hope with the behavior program that I'm trying to build and scale up is that you would be able to see that real-time data, hopefully, as we're collecting it. But welfare is one of those things that will, like, you need to collect all those categories and all those inputs and outputs over a probably good amount of time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a very scientific term, saying good amount, but it's technically,
Yeah, sometimes you have to do what you can with the time you have, or the people you have, or the resources.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm also the same. I'm very impatient, so I'm like, I want to know, like, how this animal's doing, like, but I have to collect for another season, like, so yeah, I totally get it.
Something that you just quickly touched on earlier that I wanted to ask you about, I know it's become more of an area of focus in the zoo field in general, but especially on our team, I feel like we find ourselves talking about it a lot lately, is choice and control. Mm-hmm. Can you talk just a little bit about what instituting choice and control means for an animal and how that might affect an animal's day or life? Yeah,
so choice and control also has been coined in the animal welfare community as one of the opportunities to thrive, one of the opportunities for animals to thrive. And thrive is kind of one of those also terms that we want our animals to experience not only just good welfare, but thriving welfare, where they're experiencing new things, they're being resilient, they're becoming, they have those opportunities. And that's really what choice really means for me, and I think in regards to welfare, is providing animals those opportunities to experience new things, and not only just new things, but maybe different experiences, things that could help them engage in more species-specific behaviors, and to really show the kind of what their behavioral repertoire is, and their life, and what's in their species history. I think what's really interesting about choice and control is that it's because it's part of the opportunities. There's 5 opportunities to thrive, and to really quantify it, pare it down for animal welfare, we've come up with 5 opportunities for animals to thrive, and that's just one component. It's kind of that mental affective state for an animal. Choice for how many opportunities they have throughout their day, which could include enrichment, but also control over those opportunities. And that part is really interesting to me because it's been a really hot topic with ambassador animals, and how are we asking permission? Are we establishing that control over those animals who actually go out and basically do outreach and jobs, and provide that educational aspect for animals? But a lot of institutions now are providing that choice and control by asking those animals for really just permission.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And I think a lot of keepers here and across zoos as well, they really establish that into their husbandry and their training, is we ask our animals if they want to do it or not. And if they don't do it, then they don't want to do it.
And the way, for anyone who might not be understanding, like, they can't talk back, but we could present a crate, and if they want to go do the program, they will like choose to go into the crate or hop on your hand if it's a bird that can fly, like it's their choice whether or not they actually move, I guess, to where you need them.
And you can get a read on their behavior, and you can tell if they're not in the mood one day, and you skip that day.
Yeah, and like other options that we do for animals in general for choice is, we give them straw bed, they have the regular floor, they have, their outdoor grass, and, it's interesting to see if the hippos choose, if they have access, if they want to sleep in the pool, and there's heated floors with their stalls, or in the sand, and just different choices like that. I think it's interesting to me now having a child, and I read all of this stuff, like, toddlers can't communicate very well, so it's almost like keepers and animals. You have to learn to communicate without speaking the same language. And you can imagine if your child in their head is just thinking, I want the blue cup today, you just give them a choice. Do you want the green or the blue? Do you want this or that? Because it's just like us if we had a boss that told us what to do all day long. It would be really, you would hate your job. It would be really infuriating. And you're just like, why don't I have a choice in what I'm doing right now? So I think it's important that, and it's something that we are doing, but we're always thinking, like, does this animal, it's 100 degrees out, would I want to be outside? No, so we'll let them choose. Do they want to be outside or inside? Some animals would choose, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I love seeing examples like that all across the zoo. Like, just having, even just having a multi-species exhibit like the African savanna. Like, they can choose to interact with each other or not.
Mm-hmm. I think the mixed species are the best. Like, we see so many interactions, and they are things that could happen naturally in the wild and would happen, like vultures coming across, a hoof stock or antelope of some sort.
I think one of my favorite, I had like talking about those reliability videos, since we're out just taking videos of animals. One of my favorite videos is that in the corner, you could kind of see all of these animals just doing what they want, which is Hobbs or Kudu. He's just sitting on his own because he's fine. He doesn't need to interact with anybody.
He likes his me time.
Yeah. He's a very, he's very adorable. I love him.
He is.
And I'm not just saying that because you guys are here. But he's really
no,
great.
We believe you.
If it was another animal, I might be like, she's just saying that. And everyone who meets Hobbs knows he's adorable.
Yeah, he's adorable. And there's in the video, we're kind of focusing in on an impala, and then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, just one of the ostriches just comes in, and then the impala just leaves. So it's like one of my favorite videos. I'm like, that's just a great interaction of the impala was like, nope, left, and the ostrich was like, I'm just going to choose violence today, like, or something or something. Not really, but you know what I mean. So it was really cool to just see all those interactions, and I think Icky, our saddle stork, was also just by herself in that video. So it was just really cool to see. I also love how you apply it also at home and at work. That's like one of my favorite things.
Zookeeper Jenna has become Mom Jenna.
They kind of work out pretty well in so many ways.
To all
I'm
life.
watching these behaviors like, is this normal spit up, or is that, not anymore, but he was little.
After reading behavior without being able to communicate, once Lincoln can talk, it's going to be a piece of cake, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
It's so much easier. I think that's why people struggle so much with toddlers, and they throw tantrums because they're trying very hard to tell you what they want. And they just don't know how. Yeah,
I came from a trip with my sister, and she has 2 daughters. And I love them to death, and her little one is about almost 2, and she said almost the exact same thing. She's like, you understand, right? Like, she can't explain it, and I just have to, like, try to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And she's, like, kind of throwing a tantrum, and she's like, she can't express her emotions the way that she wants, so I have to try to figure it out.
Exactly.
And I love that she was, like, trying to explain to me, like, scientifically, like, this is what it is, right? So, like, you have to figure that out. And she's a scientist too, so she kind of like figured that. Yeah, so so it's kind of nice.
That's the coolest part, is trying to like learn our animals and try and figure out what they're telling us, and when they have needs, and hopefully giving them what they need.
Yeah. And I think applying like choice and control, providing those opportunities really help us really understand what an animal loves and what it doesn't, and it could be substrate, it could be enrichment, it could be a new, like a novel thing, and that's why it's really important to evaluate those things. And I think that's where those things for all the science that kind of come in and show us, well, last time this animal saw the big blue ball, it didn't like it, so I should probably not, maybe we could try a green ball, and stuff like that. So I love that. Yeah,
we definitely see all sorts of things like that. Like Tucker does not like things hanging. The girls love hanging. Or it's very interesting to me, like seasonally we'll see that the hippos spend most of the winter, they could sleep in any pool they want, and they choose the floor. And I assume, I don't know, but I assume it's because it's heated.
Yeah.
And the water's not super warm, so they're going to choose the comfort of the heat in the winter. And then as summer months come, you see them sleeping in the pools overnight way more than in the stalls. So,
like with giraffes, just again with the whole individuality, it's just we provide them so many feeders, but at Brookfield, there was 2 that really liked this specific feeder, and it could have been where it was at, or it could have been the color of it. It could have been, I have no idea.
Right.
They just always went towards that one, and it was just so funny to see that. So it's nice, even though we provide a lot of choice and a lot of opportunity, that maybe animals always choose the same thing.
Yeah.
So I love that too. Yeah.
It's just like me. I always sit at the same seat on the same spot on the couch
Yeah.
every night. I sit down.
Exactly.
Creatures of habit.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there anything else we haven't touched on that you want to talk about before we do trivia?
Well, I don't want to postpone trivia. I mean, I love trivia.
Something comes to mind. Tell us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, honestly, I feel really honored to just be here to talk to you guys.
Thanks for coming.
It's just so great to see Cincinnati Zoo kind of go towards this kind of this progress, and I just hope to continue it. I think being data driven and being kind of more of this evidence-based kind of institution it's so great. Also, I think David and I touch upon this all the time, but there's never a shortage of projects or questions or things to ask, and everyone's so inquisitive, and I think we're always trying to make sure to improve our animals' lives all the time, and you can clearly see that with our staff for sure. And I'm truly impressed. And not saying I didn't have that before, but I think ever since I mean, like I said, I started about a year ago, and ever since then, I am just up to here. I'm pointing, you can't see me, I'm pointing to the top of my head, but just with projects, and I'm so excited about it. Just a lot of questions about animals. It could be really short-term things, like watching mobility of animals as they get older. I think that's a really good example. I mean, we just made some exhibit modifications for a gray fox because after watching her mobility and as she got older and how she moved around her exhibit. So
that's a great example.
Yeah, that's a great example. We used kind of those observations and seeing that she wasn't getting to certain parts of her exhibit, so we made a lot of those areas more accessible for her.
Perfect.
Yeah, which is great. So that's another really good example, and something that just happened recently, and it's just one of those really great questions and projects that just came up from animal care staff, really. So yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. And we're lucky to have someone with your talents and skills to be able to analyze that and help us interpret our information that we're gathering, because we can't always interpret it. Sometimes, I feel like as keepers, we tend to get kind of caught up in the day-to-day. It's a little bit hard for us to see the bigger picture sometimes and to see the long term. We definitely need help with that.
Yeah, but I love the collaboration, and I love and I think that's where you guys are so great at also assisting, and I think it's not just me. I have a team of people, and I have you guys, and I have the entire staff just really working together, and that collaboration piece is really important.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really analyze truly how an animal is doing unless I hear the input from animal keeper staff, also our nutritionists, the vets. So I think that kind of collaboration is truly needed to understand how our animals are doing. So yeah. So I can't take all that credit for sure.
There's a lot that goes into it.
For
We
sure.
appreciate what you're doing
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, no, I do love it. I'm really nerdy, and I really like just like David. Like we're both very much nerds about data, and I joke all the time, even though it's not really a joke. But in college I used to do a lot of pipetting, like just I worked in a lab for a very short time, and I pipetted just like the same amount into like these little tubes. And I did that for like hours, and I was like, "This is cool. I actually really like it." So I'm really okay with doing the same thing over and over, which I'm
Good
really
for you.
weird about.
I'm the opposite.
So I'm kind of like almost. I kind of found my niche of just like
Perfect.
dealing with a lot of data. It super excites me. So yeah,
Good. I'm happy to hear that.
super nerd, but yeah.
At the zoo, we're all nerds in our own ways.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Definitely.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, are you guys up for some trivia?
Yes.
do it.
I
of
do have some
course.
for you guys. I've got 3 questions for you today.
Oh gosh.
Question number 1. Some of the earliest known animal welfare and protection laws were enacted in the 13th century by this ruler.
Oh, jeez, Mark.
Man.
He always tries to stump me.
I
with
know.
that.
This is
I thought you were gonna say like the Brambles Law. I was like, oh yeah, I got that. I know what that is. Oh man,
I can't even
13th
guess a name,
century.
so
13th century.
like you,
Like
when I guess
king.
numbers, I can just pick a number. But
what if I give you a part of the world? Asia.
Oh, is it like No, when did? Okay, I'm really bad with history. Is it like when did like
You can't be
menageries
worse than me.
start? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that was in Europe, right?
I don't know.
Like-
13th
I thought that was
century.
Eastern
13th century,
Europe.
the 1200s.
I don't
Oh
know.
man.
I don't even
Does it
have a
start
guess.
with-
You've
like-
definitely heard his name. You definitely know who this is.
Gandhi.
I think you're a
Is it?
couple hundred years old.
The new purpose of the podcast is to embarrass me with history, geography questions.
I mean, you said Asia, and the first thought that comes to my head is like Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan!
Oh my gosh! Yes!
I got it. It's Genghis
Oh
Khan.
my gosh!
Can we also have to edit this out?
I can't believe it. Cat just pulled it out of thin air.
Wow.
Oh my
It's Genghis
gosh.
Khan, one of the rulers in Mongolia. He enacted some animal protection laws during breeding season to protect their herds.
Oh.
So they were hunting these herds, and they decided they would not hunt during breeding season to ensure that they had food year round and a stable food source. But I just couldn't believe they were already enacting
Well, that's
protection laws in
also-
the 1200s. Like,
That's embarrassing. I should know that too. Like, you know, so
I don't know.
like, I mean, oh man,
man.
I really pulled that out.
That
Like,
was
I
that was
really,
great.
I
That was
mean, that was
incredible.
a total guess, but I'm glad I got that right.
I'm really
so.
proud of myself.
all right, question.
That was hard.
We're
Though.
1 for 1 here. We're collaborations. Collaboration's important.
Yes,
we just heard.
collaborations,
We're 1 for
exactly.
1 here.
Gosh, are these
All
all
right.
the questions? Are they all history?
No.
Okay.
So, someone who is, I feel like I'm demeaning them by putting one title to their name. Someone as amazing as Jane Goodall, but a renowned scientist, animal welfare activist. She conducted an extremely famous 60-year research study on chimpanzees. In which country did this research take place?
Country. I have like 3 in my head, but I'm not sure if that's correct.
I'm sure I should know this. That's all my brain keeps saying.
So Jane Goodall conducted her 60-year chimpanzee study in which country?
Was the
This
Republic
is
of Congo?
I was about to say the DRC.
You're right next to it.
Why don't I know this?
Again, so
You're
you
right next
pointed
to
out
it.
the 2 things I'm really bad at: geography
Yeah.
and history.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
That's what I'm here for, guys.
The
What's
I know.
Uganda?
No.
It's southeast of DRC. If this is testing my geography too. I think it's southeast of DRC. I'm like 90% sure on that.
I can't even think of any other
I can't think of anything. I was
Chimps.
not Uganda, not the Congo. It's oh my gosh.
Do you want a hint? I'll say. Do you want a hint?
Yeah,
Starts with a T.
Tanzania?
Tanzania.
Oh.
Tanzania. Yep. Tanzania
why does that not make sense to me?
I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Gombe Stream National Park.
Wow.
Yeah. Like you discussed how a lot of these research studies take years, even decades. Yeah. In Jane Goodall's case, she conducted this study for 60 years on chimpanzee behavior, which is just incredible.
It was in Tanzania?
Yeah.
That blows my mind.
Yeah.
Right.
I know. I need to study African countries more.
All right,
Sorry,
question
move
number
on.
3.
Yeah.
Question number 3. We're talking with our animal excellence scientist. What TV villain is famous for his quote, "Excellent"?
I need you to do that again. Sorry.
I'll do my impression. You can't see this on the podcast, but excellent.
Oh my gosh, it's from Austin Powers.
Not Austin Powers.
It's not from Austin Powers?
I think in Austin Powers they say it in reference to this.
Is it? Can you give it like a year, like a range of year it was
It's a
from?
TV show that's still running.
That's still running.
Yeah. Yeah, I could be wrong. It's one of the longest running TV shows, though. I'm not a TV expert.
It's not Grey's Anatomy. And
ER?
that's
Yeah. I was going to say like ER.
These questions are hard.
It's animated. It's animated.
Oh, no, that is incorrect. I also grew up in Canada, but probably there was all the cartoons I watched are probably not in the States. Not like
I didn't account for that.
Animaniacs or like is he it's not like Dexter's Laboratory. That's the first thing I thought of.
Dexter's
No,
Laboratory.
I'm picturing like a small lab, like a lab person. Is that weird? I don't know. I'm sorry.
I know what you're talking about, but I don't know what it is.
And it's not Dexter's Laboratory because that's not it.
You give up?
I
Do you have
give
any
up.
guesses?
I give up.
Because I first thought of Austin Powers too.
See,
It's from The Simpsons.
Oh my
The
gosh.
Simpsons. Mr. Burns.
Mr. Burns.
I
Mr.
almost guessed that
Burns
just
from The
because of the
Simpsons.
longest
No.
running thing, but I didn't think it went with that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm pretty sure in Austin Powers when they say it, it's in reference to Mr. Burns.
Okay.
Oh,
I didn't like
okay.
those questions, Mark.
That's on me. I gotta get better for next week. I gotta get better.
Oh,
Okay, well,
Okay,
Kat, let's end it on a better note. My question for you is, what can I do?
Yes. What can you do? Well, let's see. A lot. I mean, not just you. I think just all of us in general. I think, with me, working in coastal Texas, and also talking to a lot of guests that came through the aquarium, they also talked to me about how they didn't know the impact of single-use plastics until they came to a coastal area, which is kind of sad, but also if that allows you to see the impact of a really large environmental change, then that's great. But I think what's really good is to understand that, those small swaps that you can make could make a really large impact. Small, like those actions, it's a small action, but really.
No, that's what we're all about here.
Yeah, and I think that's that, even just, I'm sure a lot of us have seen the video of the sea turtle and the straw and its nose and it being pulled out. Just, those things, those animals eat things that look like plastic. So, just small swaps, and they could be as easy as, just just refusing straws when you go to the places. Really supporting the restaurants and the companies that do use paper straws.
Oh yes, I always
like,
get so excited
Yeah.
when I go to a restaurant with like a different. It's not always paper these days.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like pasta
Yes,
or
pasta.
sugar or like
Yeah.
some crazy thing.
Yeah,
I
or-
always love those restaurants.
Yeah, a lot of coffee places are replacing their stirrers, their plastic stirrers,
Oh.
with pasta, and I think that's so great. And I mean, not to boast on Canada because I'm from Canada, but Canada did just issue a ban on 5 types of single-use plastic.
I saw that in the news. Yeah, that's
which
amazing.
is fantastic.
Yeah.
And one of them is straws. And I think, that's probably one of the things that I saw the most living in coastal Texas. And I think, there's other things. I mean, styrofoam and things like that. Swaps like bring your own tote bag or bring this. But I think the one of the main things that I'd like to say to people just really quickly is say no to straws. There's companies out there that sell reusable straws. Like use that reusable straw in your reusable water bottle or bring it around. And there's a company called Final Straw that I love, and I have this kind of a really portable kind of foldable straw that I just put on my keychain or I stick it in my purse, and I just use that whenever I go anywhere, and I just use that straw. And it's really cool because I'm pretty sure if it's not half or maybe a good percentage of their proceeds goes towards marine conservation.
Very cool. Even better.
Yeah, so even better to support that company or those companies that put their proceeds to a really great place, and then you're feeling good about, just making that small choice. I think what's also great about the Final Straw, they come in cute colors, and there's a little even a little cleaner that's foldable, and you could clean your straw.
I love that it's foldable, and you can just like, you don't have this giant metal straw like in your purse or your pocket if you're a guy or something, but not carrying a purse around.
Right, and I think that was like their biggest sell is that people don't want to carry metal straws in their pockets, right? So it's a foldable one, and it comes in a really cute case, and I think. Just stuff like that. I just start
stocking
really...
stuffer idea.
Yes,
Everyone get a Final Straw, folds up, super fun.
Seriously.
And I think sometimes it's hard. You're like, the restaurants already have these straws. If you go, let's say you went through a fast food drive-through and they just hand you a straw, like basically attached, not really, but like to your cup, and you're like, and you take it, but you imagine if enough people are refusing them, they'll realize over time, it might not be immediate, but they'll like, well, no one wants these. We keep taking them back.
Right.
I guess what's the point in giving them out? Obviously, it should still be an option. Not everybody can have that. I mean, you could still drink your drink without a straw. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Many like one-use plastics are just convenient, right? They're not something we actually need. We don't need a lid on everything. We don't, that sort of thing. Don't get me wrong. We all use them, and they're helpful in lots of different ways. But
and just reducing your use of plastic. The Plastic-Free July is coming up, so that's a great start. You could just go to plasticfreejuly.org and then just take their quiz to see what types of plastic you're using, and then what can you swap out.
Okay, cool. I like that.
Yeah, and I it's a kind of they take it like a challenge for the month, but like try to continue it throughout the year, and then try to continue it for another year. And I think that really helps to kind of jumpstart how much plastic we're actually using, and it's nice for me to remember how much of that goes into the ocean, but I hope that message gets played across too, is that just sometimes those little things, they will end up in an ocean.
Yeah, even from here, you might not see it, its final end, but something you drop here or floats into the river could end up in the ocean or
exactly.
on a beach.
And then, do you really need to use a plastic bag at the grocery store? Don't need to.
They're actually way worse.
Yeah.
Have you changed
They always rip and
these reusable bags? You can put so many groceries in one bag. It's less trips into your house, and they carry way more, and they don't rip. And
And then if just one last thing. Sorry, I know I'm adding more, but I just started using compostable pet. Poop bags, basically. So because that's probably where a lot of my plastic use came from, is just picking up after my dog, and then realizing I could just make this really simple swap and use bags that are compostable.
Yes.
And that makes a lot of sense to me. So yeah.
Awesome.
I love it.
Well, thanks so much for being with us and for your great ideas. And hopefully everybody will try for a plastic-free July, or just a reduction of what you use is even a big step. So
every step matters for sure.
We're going to edit out the trivia part of this episode.
But keep the part that I got that one right.
Oh, yeah. I guess we can do that. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kat, for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys. This was great. Thank you.
For sure. Until next time, thanks so much, Kat. Take care.